Friday afternoon.
I mean, not for people that are listening to this. Listen, every day is a Friday now.
Every day is a Friday.
Is that joke like 6 months old?
6 months.
Yeah.
Well, it is March 197. No, that joke is 6 months old. Welcome to Frontend First. I'm Sam.
I'm Ryan.
And we're talking about front-end development today. What's on your mind today, Ryan?
Lots of front-end development.
You know, Tailwind 2 is like coming out soon?
Oh, is this the big like hidden announcement?
Yeah, did you see the trailer?
Yeah.
Well, I think it is. That's why he's been teasing. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I guess I'll figure out if I'm allowed to say that or not. But I'm pretty sure. He's been talking about it.
This whole segment is just going to be a bunch of beeps.
Did you know that beep beep is out in the beep? So that'll be fun to dive into next week. What you been working on?
I've been doing image uploading from Next, and had a very, very magic moment with it.
Nice.
So I wanted.
What images were you uploading? What app?
I have an app that tracks books that I read, and I've been playing with a bunch of. It's kind of like an app for me to learn. It's something I need, but it's also an app to build as like a side project to learn a whole bunch of tooling. So I've been playing
TypeScript errors.
Yeah, learn TypeScript errors. I've been playing with a bunch of image uploading services, and yeah, it's funny. Just they all have little things that I don't like, but you know, kind of like the easiest image uploading, the most basic is uploading from the browser to S3. Mm-hmm. It's kind of been like the standard way of uploading for the last few years. And so I wanted to get that working with Next, and it's pretty magical because if you think about this, like if you're building a front end app, just any SPA, you have like a Rails or Node or whatever backend, you kind of have to write two pieces. You write the front end to do the image uploading, and you do the back end to generate the signatures to give the client access to S3. So there's, you know, a back end component and a front end component involved with this. But with Next, you have a back end. Like if you think about what is a Next app, it's a front end and a back end. So you can generalize the back end part of creating the signatures and doing all the coordination with S3. You can generalize that with an NPM module. And then on the front end, you just write, you know, you import a function called upload to S3, and that thing automatically talks to your backend, your Next backend.
That's crazy. So it almost sounds like an engine from Rails.
Yeah, it actually reminded me a lot when we worked on Ember apps.
Yeah.
And every backend we used was a Rails backend. Our Ember apps could make so many assumptions.
Right. And
they could just say like, oh, I'm going to fetch the data I need from this endpoint.
Right.
And that's exactly what this is. And it's, you know, there was a point where our SPAs were like that, and then we kind of went more general.
Right.
Where, you know, not everyone uses Rails, and it's kind of ridiculous to expect that. And so I felt like I lost that. I felt like I lost building it's one feature. Uploading an image to S3 is one feature, but definitely lost that.
The implementation leaks into it everywhere, and it doesn't feel like you're working on one feature.
Right. And then also, when we're working on SPAs that aren't Next, we have Create React app or Gatsby app. Those have servers in the dev environment. Like they have servers. They have Express servers. They give you APIs to wire into them. So you can like mock out what like your backend would be doing in those servers. But then as soon as you deploy to production, all that code is lost. But that's not true with Next. When you deploy a Next app, like in development, you have the API route. And then when you deploy it, you have the API route. Yeah. So that code carries through, and it's really nice. It's really nice to be able to have a 4-line component to upload a file to S3. And that's crazy. It takes care of everything. I mean, it takes care of it.
So what does the integration look like? I know you were trying to get it on NPM, but let's just say it was on NPM and it worked.
Yep.
How would you actually use this thing?
So, I can talk about today and then where I want it to go. But today you would have to set up the S3 bucket in AWS, and you'd have to get API keys. That is so painful. It is just ridiculous. Actually, just side note, I think AWS does this on purpose, is like a filter. I really do.
Because they don't want it to be a consumer-facing kind of...
Yeah. They want their consumers to have a certain level of understanding of AWS.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my hypothesis. That's like my conspiracy hypothesis.
Because what you're saying, why would they make it like...
It's just so... When you get it working and you understand it, it makes sense. And like, okay, AWS has the best APIs, and there is nothing that you can't do on AWS.
Yeah.
But it is not the login, click a button.
Yeah.
Here are your API keys.
It's not a SAM UI.
The thing that you get from Cloud and Airy, the thing that you get from, these other upload services. So, I think it's a filter. That's my anyway, back to the, end tangent.
So you do that, you get your API keys, your bucket set up.
Yeah. You put the API keys in your .env.local, and you would put them, in your hosting environments, env vars.
Because it's the server part. It's the server secret that your API routes need to know about.
Yes.
It's not the client
Exactly.
config. It's the server config.
And then,
interesting.
You have an API route.
By the way, I love that Next.js supports .env out of the box.
Yeah.
Because we ran into that when we were doing, what were we doing last week? My fitness app? Auth on the fitness app. Yes. And we had to get keys for Firebase.
To talk to Firebase. Yeah. So same idea, right?
Cool.
You have server secret, env variable. Yeah. And .env is great. And the fact that you don't have to configure anything is just amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, you create an API route, and that API route just exports a function from the NPM module. So you would export.
Oh, that's why you were asking me if you could just like export image from Ryan's package as default.
Yeah. Right, and then
because that's Next API is exporting default function.
And then my thing's the name. So
is it able to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So you would do export API route, as default from
export curly API route curly as default from
S3
package.
From S3 upload, whatever I'm going to call it. Yeah. And that's it. That's all you need on the back end. And then on the front end.
Also, by the way, can I just pause and say that like in both the Rails and Ember ecosystems, like if that was going to happen where you were going to set that up, like you would have the engine or the add-on do that for you. That's part of like the magic of it. When you install, you mount an engine, but it can do a bunch of things.
Yep. You can automatically like inject an API route.
Exactly. Yeah. And like here, it's like, I just remember a couple of years ago, I would have been like, oh, why do you even have to do this as a boilerplate? And now it's like, it's just so much better.
No.
So
dude, I'm opening an issue on Next.js. They have a whole issue about this, about plugins.
Oh, really?
And I'm going to say like this, there's a great use case for plugins.
To inject it into your thing. But don't you run the risk? I mean, I guess if there's an escape hatch, but isn't it like...
Yeah, there will
be an escape hatch, but then it's like now there's two ways to do everything.
Next.js is great at...
and the host would still have to choose where to mount it so it doesn't collide with a name, just like we're mounting an engine in Rails. So you would have to choose where to mount it. You couldn't say, it's underscore S3 uploader. You have like a namespace per NPM package or something like that.
The Next.js team is like extremely good at stuff like this. So I'm just going to defer to all their decisions here. And I mean, they might just say no. There's like it's on GitHub issue. It's a GitHub discussion about this sort of stuff.
People are already asking for ways to plug in
for plugins for tons of other things too. I think that when you
could convince me like an NPM scoped like API sub route, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think when you do, so it's next image, right? Next image, you don't have to go create an API route to respond with image data.
That's true. So you want to give library authors the same kind of power.
Yeah, and in a safe namespaced way.
Right.
Yeah, with escape hatches.
Right.
I think that when you tell people they have to go, export and import.
Right.
Which is what they're doing. I think maybe like the implementation will leak. Why am I doing this?
Right.
Like, does it matter what file I do this in? The answers are like, it doesn't matter what file you use. It just needs something the front end knows to communicate with the back end. But yeah, there could be more, could raise questions and slow folks down. So I think having a plugin service here could be nice.
I was also thinking, like, would there be a way to use one of the hooks to integrate the backend piece, get server-side props or get static props? So you just do it all within the component, but then it's like, it's really a generic purpose API endpoint that you need, right?
Right. Because you want multiple components on your page to be able to use this.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So anyway, you get an API route. And then on the front end, you get a hook called use S3 upload. And you get 3 things from that. So the first thing is a file input. You need a file.
A ref?
No, just a file input. You need a file input on the page to coordinate uploads. And if you were to make your own input type equals file, you have to do a ton of wiring.
Okay.
So I just provide
a
file input. This has nothing to do with
still style it and stuff like that.
I have it so it's just hidden. It's just for coordination. You just need a file input on the page.
Okay. Coming back to me the last time I did a custom file upload thing, you have like a hidden one.
Yeah, you can do this yourself in HTML. You just end up spending a ton of time making a hidden file input with a ref and it's just for coordination. It's not for anything
for
else.
Visual.
Yeah.
So I could still use a form from Tailwind UI that had a file upload styled, click on it and it would work.
Absolutely.
Like Got you. Okay, cool.
Then I have a function called open file dialog, which, whatever, not the greatest name, but it's a thing that pops open the open file dialog. So, if you're using Tailwind UI, they have the form and their form has a button that says click here to upload a file. So you would do button on click, open file dialog.
Got you.
And then I have a function called upload to S3. And that's like where the real magic happens. Upload to S3 takes a file, like a capital F file object, which is what the browser uses to track files that like you're opening. And it ships it to S3. And that thing will
return with like a key,
it's a promise, and it returns when the promise resolves or fulfills whatever we're supposed to say. It has like a key, a URL, a whole bunch of info.
So you could save that to like Hasura, let's say.
Yep.
And then you could write an image component that uses that.
Exactly.
To read it.
I mean, you could just save the URL to Hasura and then have your image component read that. And I'll actually touch on that in a second. But the upload to S3 is a thing that it goes to your API route and says, I want to upload this file. Mm-hmm. And your API route gives you just enough permission to S3 to upload that file. And so you can do like, I don't have this yet, but you could do things like you could do user auth checks here. Or you could do, but from the developer's point of view, they're literally just wiring up a component in the UI that uploads to S3. And that's like, that's the magic for me. Like you don't need to know about the backend.
Yeah.
The backend isn't even there from your point of view.
Yeah. That sounds great. I'd love to use that.
Yeah.
I would love to use it actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if I told you I wanted to add image upload to the fitness app, would you say this I should use this?
Yeah.
Just because we can work on it.
Yeah.
But like even among all the other existing stuff, this is like, there wasn't anything out there that really did this.
I mean, Cloudinary is better for images, right? Because you can do like face detection and person detection and all that.
But you can still stick Cloudinary in front of.
Sure.
They have an uploading part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. All these things do. Now you would have to coordinate like your JWT tokens if you want to give people access and whatever. I mean, you'd still have to do the same thing with this, right?
Yeah.
Like if you
want to restrict access to photos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I also
probably a good idea.
I also have a
not iCloud situation.
Yeah. I also have a function in my app called like get metadata from image, and it returns like the image's height and width and so on.
Oh, cool.
So I select a file. I call get metadata from image to get its height and width. Then I take that file. I call upload to S3 with that file. From
the next server side route.
No.
Express handler. Oh, you're talking about on the client.
This is all client side code.
Okay.
This is all. I mean, that's what I want. My goal here was like, I'm a React developer that wants to upload a file.
Yeah.
I do not want to be writing Express code.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So this is all client side code. Get the height and width of the file, upload it to S3, and then I have those 3 properties.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Hasura backend, I made a new column in my database called photo, and it's a JSON type, and the keys are height, width, and URL. And then once everything uploads, I then use a GraphQL mutation from Hasura to send height, width, and URL to the backend. And now the front end, when it, like you go to like the index page or the view page, it gets all those fields from Hasura and it uses Next.image to show the image. So you get the whole...
Oh, cool.
You get the caching. Because S3 is slow.
Right. And it's not made for...
Yeah, it's not made for serving images.
It's made for storage.
Right.
Not for serving images.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have like...
People can put...
CloudFront
in front of S3, but...
Right.
This is nicer boundaries because you're literally using it to store images. You already have a way to serve static assets from CDNs.
Yes. Yep. So then Next.image, you get all the SRC set.
And then you never have to like specify the height and width. I mean, it's just coming from the back end.
It's coming from the back end.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you, what was the other one? Oh, yeah, the resizing and like the fast loading. And all that.
Yeah.
So it's all...
Dude, that's awesome. And that's all in your Books app?
Yes. Well, I'm
you're extracting.
I'm creating this NPM module now. So.
But it does do the thing with the Hasura. I mean, you have all that. All of it's wired up, and you can upload a picture. Have you done it like from your phone or whatever?
From my computer.
That's awesome.
Not from the phone.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So like the steps I did to do this was I wrote it all in my Next app, and I created a page called like upload test that just let me upload a photo, and then it like rendered that photo. So it was like the simplest component ever. It had state, and then it had, the things from my hooks, and it would upload to S3 and then set the state and then render the photo. And then when that worked, it was still all in my application, and I went to like an actual real page in my application that had a real form, right, with like real data, real GraphQL mutations, and I put it in there and got that all working.
Nice.
And then now I'm taking the generic code, so like the API route and the hook, and putting it in an NPM package and having my app just use those.
Nice.
And so, once
that's the refactoring, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Move it out of your app into the external package.
So from my app's point of view, no code should change.
Right.
So yeah, pretty...
Except the import paths.
Yeah, exactly. That should be the only diff is the import paths, because the APIs still say the same.
Get on that. Yeah. What are you doing on this podcast? I want this thing. I'm ready for it. That's really cool. I will absolutely use it because like that's one of like the top 3 things I want to add to my side project next.
Yeah. The AWS setup is really brutal, and I think it's enough. The whole reason I'm doing this is like I'm a front end developer and I want to upload a file from React. So why do I have to leave React?
Right.
And the AWS setup like completely fails that test.
Right.
It completely
what was the last
fails.
thing we were talking about in that context? That we never had to leave wasn't it was it the Next.image when we were talking about that?
I was thinking like Next.image, Hasura maybe.
Yeah, the GraphQL stuff.
Yeah. Just never leaving the front end is just beautiful.
Not even just a front end, it's that file.
Yeah.
Actually, it's more about the file, isn't it? Because conceptually there's parts of that, like when I first was using get server-side props, that it wasn't, technically I was writing server-side code, but I didn't think it was, know?
Yeah.
So it's, the co-location. But that's really cool, man. Really cool.
Yeah. Yes.
First open source project in Next ecosystem. We can't help ourselves, apparently.
I have a bunch of other ideas that follow this sort of thing. Wait, there's one more thing. Oh, yeah, the AWS setup. It's still... Yeah. It fails my, like, I'm a front-end developer. And not just like, front-end developers, like, they can't handle AWS. They totally can, but
they don't want
to. Want... I'm writing a React component.
Yeah.
Why the hell am I learning?
Everything that's just stopping you from styling that form and working on the UX is just friction. It's not value add from your perspective.
Exactly. So AWS has this, they call it like CDK, which is its cloud development kit, one of those, some name like that. But one of the whole points behind it is to make setting up AWS infrastructure easier for consumers. So you can encode all the AWS setup in JavaScript.
Okay.
And they can just run like NPM setup, S3 uploads. And that can ask them a bunch of questions. Like, what do you want the bucket to be named?
Okay,
what region do you want it in? And then that thing can do all the setup. So that, I mean, that's
a step improvement for sure.
That's way better than being like, this is a policy document. You need to.
Oh God,
it's bad. It's gotten worse. It's
that's crazy.
What
about you on this weekend making a multi-tenant service so that I don't have to ever set up another AWS bucket?
Yeah,
you just have Sam and Ryan's bucket.api.com.
Yeah,
that would be. Another idea. That's Cloudinary.
Yeah. I mean, file picker too. That's
because they all do use S3 under the hood.
Yeah, they even say like, we'll store stuff to your S3 bucket. Just let us know what it is, and they'll walk you through everything. So I think there are ways you can smooth out the S3.
Maybe
process.
I should go through it using one of those things and see what it would be like. I mean, I guess it would be more money, and I would have to have an account there. But I mean, I guess if I have an AWS account.
Yeah, I think they can. I think the
I wish Vercel just had it set up.
Yeah,
it's like I just want to have fewer accounts. You know.
Yeah, I mean your hosting environment providing this, it's weird. It's like would be the easiest thing,
but it's kind of weird.
It's also like
concern for them to have.
I guess the nice thing about S3 is like S3 just it works, and it works for everything.
It's true, and it's also like it's not going to change. It's not going to increase their price. It's just a one-time thing. You're going to be able to use it on every project.
There's the SDK, the AWS APIs they just nail the APIs. Yeah. Like I've never used AWS for anything and said, oh man, if I had my own server, this would be so much easier.
Yeah,
it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
It's actually like, wow, I don't know how I would do this if I had my own server. So
that's cool.
Just, kind of wrapping this up, there's more things like this that I want to build, given that in a Next app, you do have a backend and a front end. Mm-hmm. So, when we were doing like Ember Rails apps, we had the whole detect if a new build has been deployed.
Oh yeah.
And you can easily do this in Next. I started prototyping this as well.
Oh, cool. I need this too.
Yeah. So Next, I need this. Yeah.
Cause I keep pushing updates and like, I'll pull it up with Rob or something and it's like, why this is not there? Oh, you have to close it, make them close it.
Yep. So this is doable because you can make a Next API route that responds with the get SHA of the latest deployment.
Nice.
And then you can provide your user like, a use is latest deploy, and that thing can just be declarative. It returns a thing that flips from true to false, and then in your JSX you can pop up a little modal or whatever you can
click to update.
Yeah,
Telegram or whatever.
Or just in my case it's going to be like FU window.reload.
Right, exactly.
So there's a lot. That's
really cool.
Exciting me about Next is there's a lot. Like when we're building features, there are a lot of features that depend on the back end.
Yeah.
And Next is the first framework I've used that like actually encompasses both those things.
Pretty awesome, man. Really cool. You could even imagine Next and Vercel like supplying these things, more of these things as it goes forward. I mean, in the same way that the Next image uses the back end.
Yep. Yeah, it would be amazing.
Doesn't Netlify have identity or something like that? Identity service?
Yeah, maybe.
That would be a cool thing to have. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I would use that immediately. His latest app.
The thing
even just to refresh it.
The thing with like Netlify is we don't think there's like it's like flipped. We think of like we first build our app in X framework and then we deploy to Netlify. Or with like Next and Vercel, we look at these as the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We look at it as building our app in Next, deploying to Vercel. I know you can deploy elsewhere, but why?
Right.
We don't.
For our cases, we have no reason to,
And so I think there's a lot you get where, I think there's a lot of power.
You wouldn't think about how to make this thing wouldn't jump out at you if you were deploying a Vue app to Netlify. Even the capabilities were there with the functions and stuff.
Right. It's, exactly. The capabilities are there with the functions.
Right.
But
who's going to do that? Because it's like, it's weird.
It's the same thing why we stopped doing this with the Ember Rails thing because, there were lots of Ember apps out there that aren't using Rails. And so it's just...
The assumptions don't hold.
Yes. Where I think with Next, they do.
Yep.
So
What other things have we done in the past? I mean, the identity stuff, of course, you think about right away if there's a way to help with that stuff.
Yeah. What is his name? Lee Robinson works.
I mean, if you hook up, if you could, yeah, I guess the function that I ended up writing, we set up auth in my fitness app, and the function, the webhook that we ended up writing in the Next app wasn't that much, but you still had to remember it. So it would be nice to come from a package.
Lee Robinson, I think that's his name, works for Vercel,
Yep.
and he's been making a bunch of demo apps like this.
Yeah.
And he just published one today that was a DynamoDB.
With auth? Or no, it was just
I don't think it has auth.
And Next.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But it's the same idea of
the secrets are in the back end.
Exactly. It's the API route is there. You don't touch the API route. You just write front end code that talks to the API route.
That's pretty cool.
So, that would be amazing. You could have a whole database that's front end driven. Like, that's amazing to think about.
Can you elaborate?
You could have, Hasura without having to like set up Hasura. So you could
because it's just configured from the code or something?
Yeah, you make database mutations on the client, right? And you would think like, oh, you can't do that because the client can't talk directly to the database because then the database is
exposed or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's open to all clients. But by going through the API route, you can do more restrictions, more control. So yeah, I think there's...
Yeah, you just get to avoid the setup, basically.
Yeah. I think there's a ton of stuff, like anything we do with backend. Like I was thinking like email. You could have a like use email hook that like you click a link to invite your teammate to your plan. And part of that is sending an email. And that's always been done in the backend, right? Because you can't just have your front end send email. Like that concept just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But you could have a use email hook and keep all the emails in the front end and like author the emails in the front end and feel like the front end is sending the email. But that thing is going to go through the back end and think about how much auth the back end can do. Like, is this user logged in? This user is trying to send an email to their teammate. Like, okay, they're on the same team plan, so that's okay. Like, there's a lot more you can do. Yeah.
Interesting. That's pretty cool.
I think email is like the final boss.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the hard thing. But the things like image upload, is latest app. Those sort of things are things like we've done before.
Yeah. They're like, it almost makes me think of like, just things like SaaS features, like things that SaaS apps need, always end up needing. And it's like a lot of them could be extracted. Pretty cool. I like it. Pretty cool, man. The image stuff would be, I think, a really nice like carrot or whatever, because if you just were like, that's something the backend developer could always hold over the front end developer's head, or someone who's using Rails, they can just, they'll do it a lot faster because it's all integrated.
Yeah, it's also the thing that like the front end developer, when you have that split where back end and front end, the front end developer is powerless. They have to go to the back end developer and be like, oh, can you set up a thing? And then you have to explain it. And then there's,
And queue jobs would be another one. I mean, there was that service where you literally just do it from the front end. But there's an idea here where if you had a server that was running whatever, what was the thing that Mike worked on? That's not Sidekick, the new one that was like agnostic. Anyways, let's say you had a Sidekick server running and you wanted to send messages to it. You could, from an API route. So
have an API route, do all the coordination. You just like use batch job, something like that. Yes.
Or even like really anything you do during dev time that's useful, like how Next runs the FFmpeg, or not FFmpeg, but image magic kind of thing. Anything that you would want to do in Node that you just want to provide as data to the front end.
Yeah, it's anything that you have to communicate between a front end and back end. Like, oh, I have to post this data to the back end and get back a response to do this thing. Yeah.
Yep. Pretty cool.
Just hide it all in hooks.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, let's get that image one working, and I'll be your customer number one or number two once you update your app.
Yeah, and we can see how far you get in the AWS setup. minutes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'll have to like take 4 Advil before I start that process.
I think that
chug a Red Bull.
I think AWS does give tooling to make it easier. So I do want to explore that, but I don't just want to start writing all that code.
To try the more abstract version of it.
The more,
yeah. But that might be able to help the users from having to go through instead of all that stuff.
Yeah. And you can do like, just from my app, I can make a documentation site that like you paste in your bucket name and your account ID and it automatically generates a policy.
Right.
Rather than being like, copy this and replace this part with this. And it's just...
It does feel like we should start to get better at these like multi-tenant apps. So now we have, how many S3 buckets do we, you set up a new S3 bucket for everything. Think about all the projects we have running. Not a ton, but like there's enough that it's, and it's the same with auth too. I'd rather have one auth server for like all my little side projects. Dude, it would be so awesome if I could just start up a new, there's another app idea I have just for a little small thing. And it's like, it'd be so awesome if I could just boop and I get Hasura backend. That one's fine for me. It's a button push, but it's more about the auth stuff and just having users and just being able to use the same architecture that I've developed over the last 9 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Easily,
It's tricky. Like you want to use a SaaS service for this that hides all the multi-tenant
but
stuff.
they all suck.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So you want to make I mean,
that seems harder.
That's what a multi-tenant app is.
I know, but you
it's
just
like
start by doing it for our combined 6 projects.
Yeah. The S3 stuff, like absolutely, like all the projects we've worked on, we can get away with one bucket where like the first key, if you split by slash, the first element is like project name.
Yeah.
It's just tricky in general because like permissions and, you have like an admin account for the S3 bucket.
Yeah.
That has access to everything in the bucket. And then one app has like sensitive stuff. And now there's it's just tricky. Mm-hmm. Again, this is a pain of setting up a bucket is setting up a permissions. Mm-hmm. So if you have to set up different permissions for every app,
you're back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
You haven't really saved anything. So.
Right. Interesting. You had this topic on our list from last week that was about something cool.
Yeah. I don't even remember that. What was it? Parser.
Combinators.
Yeah. Parser combinators.
Yeah.
So this is a good story. I'm working on an app that has an import feature where you can just paste data, structured data into a text area, and it's going to parse that data and insert a bunch of rows into a database. I guess I should explain what it is. It's like poker hands. So we have a way to like visually talk about like.
Have you been gambling with company money again, Ryan?
Yeah. We're up a lot.
Great. How did you guys manage to do so well in 2020? Well, we learned about parser combinators.
Yeah, basically. So there's like a way that
you all speak another language because I've seen this before. And so you're like, oh yeah.
The way that you talk about poker hands can be represented like visually. And then that visual representation, there's a data format for it. So there's like a string representation.
What's an example?
So God, you would talk about like a situation that you're in and all the hands you can have in this situation. So you don't always just have one hand, right?
Example, yeah.
There's a flush on the board and you go all in. So you should probably have the flush a lot of the times that you go all in here, right?
Right.
But you should also have bluffs. So you want to be able to talk about all the hands
about potentialities
that you can have in this situation and like which ones are bluffs. Well, if you don't have the flush and you're bluffing, it's really good when you have one card that makes the flush, like one of the flush cards. So if there's like 3 hearts on the board, it's really good if you have 1 heart in your hand.
Because there's one less heart for other players?
Exactly.
Okay.
There's 1 less heart for your opponent to have. It's really good if you have the ace of hearts because then
the highest flush your opponent could have.
Your opponent can never have the best hand because you block the best hand.
I see.
So when we talk about poker hands, we want to talk about like the range of hands you can have, and we represent that visually with a hand grid, and that visual representation of the hand grid can be can be represented as like a string data structure.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted a way.
That's cool. So that's like the grid that I've seen up on the thing with the colors.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Got you.
And the colors, like they can get darker based on like the frequencies that you have the hand. They can also like, you can take different actions. So like, given that I'm in this spot, I'm going to fold these hands and I'm going to raise with these hands. And so you can represent those things as different colors. But like that visual representation all can be represented as a string, as a data structure.
What's an example string? Or super long?
Yeah, they're long, but it would be something like bracket, a frequency like 100, and then all the hands you have at 100% frequency. So maybe like aces, and then you would close the bracket, close the frequency. So it would look like literally like closing an HTML tag. It'd be like bracket / 100. That would be your frequency, and then end bracket. So it looks a lot. Yeah.
And it was just made up as a way to be a more terse form of expressing different situations.
There were a few.
So people online can just be like, oh, I have this.
There are programs out there that like represent these things, and people want ways to like import and export these programs. So that's kind of like, it was like a emergent.
Organically.
Yeah. Yes.
Organic standard that emerged from people wanting to share it. Cool.
And so that's exactly what I needed. I needed a way to import this data into one of my programs.
Okay, cool.
And so I was like, okay, there's a bunch of frequencies. Inside those frequencies, there's a bunch of hands. There's like brackets and then like, closing tags.
So you want to turn this thing into your visual grid with squares and colors.
Right.
So you needed to basically turn it into a JavaScript data structure from a string.
Exactly. Gotcha. So I was looking at this and I was like, okay, this is like simple. I can use like split and then like regex. And you always do this, right? You do like some regex and then you do a map and then maybe you have like an inner regex in there.
Right.
And then you get back a data structure.
Right.
And I was like, okay, like maybe there's a better way to do this.
Yeah. I actually saw you ask on Twitter.
Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to ask on Twitter, go get lunch. And then, I'll have 5 answers, 5 totally different answers. And I'll just pick the best one.
Right.
So I tweeted this, and I guess before I get to the parser,
shell it to a Perl script.
Yeah. Someone replied with, I think it's like a really genius answer that I didn't do. But as I was describing this data structure, it's a lot like HTML, except they're square brackets, not angle brackets. So someone said, well, just convert the square brackets to angle brackets. And then there's literally an HTML parser, DOM parser, that takes a string of HTML and returns you like an XML tree, a DOM tree. And, that's kind of a genius answer. Like,
but is it really that close? It's that close where it would conform to
the things inside of the frequencies or wouldn't. Right. Because they're like, there's different ways to represent that. But as far as
getting the overall structure.
Yeah. Like that would get you the first layer of the structure would get you all those frequencies.
Cool.
And I didn't do this, right? Cause I wanted to do something more robust,
right.
But as far as like bad answers that are really pragmatic and like literally get you working in 30 seconds.
Right.
Like that was a genius answer.
That's pretty good.
So I
was props to that.
I was like, man, my brain doesn't think like that, but I wish I did.
Yeah.
Like I wish I like,
that's like, James Bond being,
MacGyver.
MacGyver. Yeah. Being, resourceful,
Yeah.
I like it.
Chris Freeman replied with, parser combinators.
And the opposite of the 30-second pragmatic answer. It's like, first learn Haskell.
He said,
and then
parser combinators, it might be overkill, but it's worth looking at. And I was like, I have no idea what any of this means, but I'm in.
Nice.
So I pulled up a few libraries and just Googled, found a few libraries for JavaScript. Found one called Parsimon, which had good docs. They had examples, which I kind of learn best from examples.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have simple examples, I'm using your library.
Mm-hmm.
The way it works is you basically start defining a language. Like you literally start defining a language. And,
a grammar.
Yeah. And then this thing, it's like almost like you define this thing declaratively, and then you feed in a string, or in my case, a string, and it spits back a data structure based on what you defined.
Like an abstract syntax tree almost.
Yeah. Exactly. Wait, exactly.
Yeah.
It spits back
Interesting.
an abstract. So I like defined what a frequency is as a bracket, number, and bracket.
And does it have, like, how do you say it's a number?
So they give you
give you an API.
Well, you can always use regex. So you
Okay.
can say a number is something that satisfies this, but then like number is so common,
Right.
they just give you
like a number type or something.
yeah, exactly. They
Nice.
just give you, it's like r dot number,
Nice.
and you can just use that. So I defined each part of this, and it was so much better than doing like split and map.
And like,
'Cause the
opening
split-
up regexer.com.
Yeah. I still had to use regexer for like
Patterns.
some stuff.
Right.
Like a frequency is a number.
What are
But-
some examples?
Well, frequency is a number, but a frequency can't be 200, right? It's a percentage. It's 0 to 100.
Gotcha.
So I had to like do that. A hand is a string, but it's not just any string. Like AA is a hand that represents aces, but you can't have like BB.
Right.
That's no such hand.
Right,
So I had to do like, I was playing with stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool.
But you just write out each step, like a frequency is this. Inside a frequency, it has a hand list. A hand list is a comma separated value of hands. And they give you all these helpers. So they have something that's like comma separated. That's like a common thing. Like an argument list in languages is comma separated. So they have
Nice.
a lot of that stuff built in. So you're literally just writing like, oh, comma separated hands. Okay, what's a hand? A hand is either 2 or 3 characters. Like these are the valid
ace,
hands.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3,
exactly.
4, 5, 6, ace, king.
I was a little loose in my definition there, but yeah, I could do that. I could say like
restricted to
a hand is 2 cards.
Yeah.
What's a card?
Yeah.
A card is like one of these or one of these.
Yeah. Right.
But I didn't get that far.
Yeah. So you could do like Q or something like that, but
Yeah.
or K or B. Like you
Yeah,
said,
B.
Who doesn't exist. Cool.
So I wrote that all out, and then, dude, I started feeding in these import strings.
Yeah.
And like I would just get back like a perfect data structure,
Wow.
a perfect AST, and you have full control. It's like an AST, but in my case, I just need a data structure.
Right.
So like there's
You just want to loop over it or iterate over it somehow.
So my thing is super simple, but like, yeah, I don't have like statements and expressions and all that. I just have data structure.
Right.
But it's not,
You were like surprised that it actually like worked.
it's not that much code. I would say like the whole parser is like, I don't know, 20 lines, 22 lines, something around there. And yeah, you can just feed in like, I started with 1 frequency, feed in like 3 frequencies. It just works. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I have to add another loop here.
Yeah.
And it's all declarative. That's a magic moment for me. It's all declarative. I'm not saying like how to loop over something, where to split something. I'm just saying
This is inside of this.
this is a hand. A frequency has hands inside of it. Like
That is really cool.
yeah. So I did this with just some test data. It
Did
worked.
Chris recommend Parsimon, or did he just say the term
parser,
and you Googled
parser
it?
combinators, and I found a few in JavaScript, but this was this one had examples, and they had examples about like how to parse JSON and XML. XML is pretty close. XML is close to what I'm trying to parse, right? It's like tags with things inside of it. What I'm doing is way simpler, so I could kind of see how the XML parser worked and go from there.
Nice.
There's the API for this library is huge.
Oh wow!
And
just the conveniences and like all the comma separated or
there's some stuff I don't understand. Like there's like a chain function, which I think is how you like go deeper into the language. And I just found a few examples and I'm just using it.
That's great though.
So I think I don't know. This is going to be the first thing I reach for when I have to like
normally would use just a regex.
Yeah, where I have to like parse structured data.
It's definitely come up in projects we've worked on before.
Oh my God.
Stuff from Excel. Like,
I was thinking like this. There's a project we worked on where people wanted to paste in, Excel and CSVs and stuff like that. And you end up splitting.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, but there was like a return
extra,
character.
Exactly.
Or like escaping.
Yep.
And I think this would be a way we're going to like magic moment through all that. It's like unescaped, comma or some. I don't know. I might be being too magical here, but
pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was mind blown at the end. And it didn't take me that long. Like again, the examples were really good.
Even though it was a large library, you were able to be productive with it quickly.
Yeah, a handful of things like number and string and chain and then map. And again, the examples were good.
Isn't that funny? Like sometimes it's just about knowing what to Google or what to search for. Like it's kind of like a known solved problem, but it's like, I've never heard of that term before. Have you?
No.
I've been a programmer for years and years. Yeah. You know, but I'm thinking, dude, all the stuff at my first job when I was working at that financial software company, like I think this would have been super useful. All it was like reading this crazy text from like, you know, prospectuses from like security documents and like using Perl to like, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
It would have been perfect. I mean, but it's like you said, it comes up a lot. People just stuff from Excel or whatever. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I don't think it was harder than regex because regex
sounds easier.
Yeah. Because regex always feels, it's exactly what you said. You go to regex, sir.
Yeah.
And you just start throwing paint at the wall.
Yeah.
And then when all your test cases pass,
I guess
you're done.
Works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, is Parser Combinator, is that something that you were using or is it really an implementation detail of Parsimon? So
I think Parsimon is a Parser Combinator library. So it provides you with
So by using the library, were using Parser Combinators? Were you authoring them? Do you know what a Parser Combinator is?
Yeah. So I don't know what a Parser Combinator is, so I can't answer that. I would say like, yeah, based on the APIs.
Just like maybe it's the idea of breaking down.
I created a language. That's what I would say. Because like you
define the tokens. You're defining a grammar basically by specifying which tokens are valid.
So my guess is a parser combinators let you do that. But I don't think I wrote a parser combinator. Like I don't. Yeah. Again, I'm the noob. I'm a noob in this space.
Right.
So I have no idea. But
right. Did you ever feed it a string that it said was invalid because it didn't comply with your grammar?
This is another amazing part. When you do that, you get back an error message. And depending on the string, the error message could be helpful. So remember how I said a frequency is like a percentage?
Yep.
And it's a number between 0 and 100.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ever did like bracket A and bracket,
without a frequency,
it would say was expecting percentage here.
Oh,
and
that's
it would highlight
awesome.
that line, and it gives it back to you in like a nicely formatted. It throws an error, but then like e.message is a nicely formatted text thing that says like, you know, was expecting. It has like a little caret pointing at it, and it's like was expecting.
At this point in
our
the string,
percentage here found this. Like here are the valid things. So actually, when you paste in my text box, if you paste an invalid string there,
you just forward the error from the library, and it's like the most helpful thing that the user could actually want to see.
I use like a Tailwind UI little alert box, and I just put e.message right there.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
really awesome.
Yeah, so that was another like, oh, cool. Dude, if I was writing regex, how I would just say
it didn't work. Try again.
Actually, I would probably get some data structure that was completely invalid and start sending it to the database.
Exactly.
Ruin my app. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's cool to even think about if you needed to verify it. Let's say you did want to save. What do you call the whole thing? Like a hand or something?
I think I called it like hand range.
A hand range.
As a whole
Let's say you did want to start saving like entire hand ranges to your backend. This would be a good way to validate that.
Oh, to validate the input. Absolutely. And I do that. Like
on the server though, even you could do that if you needed to. But I'm just saying, like the way you would say, oh, it's not null. It has to be a valid this. And what does it mean for it to be a valid hand range? It means that
it has to satisfy this language.
Yeah. It's
really cool. Like seriously, I always thought this was like for advanced. Oh, I'm writing something like Glimmer, and I need to do this. It's yeah. I'm excited for
way
us
more
to
accessible.
do something
Something that where we need, some client project. Hey, would you mind doing a bulk import where you turn all this? We have this data pipe format that we use in text files. Can we just put that in a database? In computer programming, a parser combinator is a higher order function that accepts several parsers as input and returns a new parser as its output. In this context, a parser is a function accepting strings as input and returning some structure as output, typically a parse tree, or a set of indices representing locations in the string where parsing stops successful.
Yeah, so
Parser combinators enable a recursive descent parsing strategy that facilitates modular piecewise construction and testing. Yep. So that's basically, yeah.
So I guess when the API where I called like
function
create language, that gives you back
the data,
the function that I can feed a string to.
Got you. Okay, so yeah. So you use it to create a parser combinator. You use Parsimon to actually create a parser combinator.
Okay.
Seems like.
Yeah. It's awesome.
That's pretty cool, man.
It's really, if you love geeking out over this crap and
it's nice when it's like
declarative code. That's like I really appreciate that. And you see
it seems like it's a well implemented library, and even though it is kind of wonky and like computer sciencey, it still was actually a good way to solve your real world problem.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that you just hit the nail on the head, where when Chris mentioned this, I was like, oh, this sounds like something that I'm going to really enjoy, but you know, I might have some hesitation if it was like client work.
Right.
And then when I got to the end, I was like, this was absolutely the right choice. And like, I shouldn't have felt guilty about using this. Like this is like super powerful and really
right tool
good
for the job.
Yeah. Really good to have in my back pocket. Also, like the way you talk about these hands, my parser is like really simple, but there's like more, the language can get more complex. And so just not thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have to modify my regex, just thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have
add more
a new token. Like hands can have dashes in them, and this is what the dash means. I'll be able to do that. I don't think I ever am, but if I need to, I would be able to.
That's really cool, man. You know what I just thought of actually, that could be useful for the next side project I want to make is just tracking like my lifts, like my max lifts on different exercises. And all these apps use different syntax for that kind of thing, where you say, you know, 135-2x5. It's like 135 pounds, 2 sets, 5 reps.
Perfect. Yeah.
Right?
Perfect.
So then you could just do that, parse it, and get structured data. So that's pretty cool.
Especially if you could like represent like a whole workout like that, where they're like comma separated, you have multiple.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's really cool. Nice, man. Well, good to know. This week for me was pretty good. I did my YouTube video was on adding a little bit more animation with Framer Motion. It always takes me a little bit longer with that. So, but it was still pretty neat to figure it out.
The Framer Motion stuff?
Yeah, just on my fitness app, adding some animated bars. I'd like to do some more stuff with it. I have some more ideas, so I think I'll be spending more time with Framer Motion like over the next month or two.
Nice.
I think it's really good.
Yeah, agreed.
Sometimes I see people posting examples of things that are like much less code than what I end up with, and I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Am I dumb? But I think it's easy to make it animate something quickly as like an example, but if you really want it to work with like every code path in your app, that's when you have to start using refs and stuff. Maybe there's a better way to do it, but that's kind of what I learned in this video. So that was fun. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to be working on probably next week or the week after. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So maybe we'll have more Framer Motion stuff to talk about next time.
Sweet.
Awesome. Shall we wrap it?
I think so.
All right, everyone. Have a good week. I'm going to have a good weekend. We have a sunny Saturday tomorrow. And it's raining all day Sunday.
Yeah.
So Saturday is fun day. Sunday is recovery.
Yeah, recovery.
Open up the couch. Get some wine. Dark chocolate, salted dark chocolate with wine. Great combo.
Good recovery.
Great
That's
recovery.
Your recovery drink.
Throw on a doubleheader scary movie. Oh, it's Friday the 13th today. So definitely going to have to queue up some scary movies for this weekend. Should be a good time. All right. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.